I'll be with you in just a moment. Now remember, you can't move a muscle or you'll ruin the picture. You ready now? Don't move. That will take a while. So, you want to know something about Mr. Lincoln? Well, a daguerreotypist gallery is a good place to start. Mr. Lincoln had many pictures made while he was here in Springfield. Ours is a growing and lucrative endeavor. I suppose you ought to know something about Springfield first. What it's like, why Mr. Lincoln came here. In fact, we can tell you much about Mr. Lincoln before he became president. Springfield, his family, his neighbors, and his law career. I'm going out to make pictures of some of the places Mr. Lincoln knows. Now that he's left to become president, the public is interested, you might say.
Mr. Lincoln came here in 1837 when the state capital was moved to Springfield. He settled and began working at his chosen endeavor as a lawyer. He was admitted to the bar that year, and there were 3 levels of state, local, and federal courts located here. We had only a population of 3,000 then, but we'd grown to nearly 10,000 by the time the Lincolns left for Washington. Moving the state government here brought many prominent people to our community, and Mr. Lincoln hobnobbed with the best of them. His law office is in that building on the corner. Right next door is Smith's General Store. Mr. Smith was married to one of Mary Todd Lincoln's sisters. That's Chatterton, where Mr. Lincoln bought his wedding ring. And there's the Dillard Drugstore, where Mr. Lincoln liked to loaf and discuss politics. When the state bank moved here, we housed it in a fine Greek Revival building. And nothing small town about us. An important crossroads, a seat of state and local government, good agricultural surroundings, and friendly, industrious people. All in all, a wholesome, prosperous place to come and raise a family.
Excuse me, I have to hurry with these newfangled wet plates. Now, you youngsters, stand back. Yes, that's where the Lincolns lived for 18 years. For a time after they were married, they lived in the Globe Tavern, downtown, just a few blocks from here. That's all right, madam. You may move across. Just don't stop along the way, please. As long as she doesn't stand in one place very long, she won't register on the plate. Where was I? Oh, yes. The Reverend Dresser, who incidentally had married the Lincolns, sold this house to Mr. Lincoln. Price was, as I recall, $1,500. That wasn't a bad price either, because at that time, lots with a 20-foot frontage on the square were selling for $1,600 each. Of course, this house was 5 years old, and it didn't have the full second story you see now. Mr. Lincoln added that later. Now, don't jiggle about or you'll ruin my picture. Since Mr. Lincoln became famous, a great many camera operators have stood at this spot. A few are now calling themselves photographers, the painters with light, or something like that.
We're a very close, friendly community. Mr. Lincoln was a prominent attorney, and, well, we all looked up to him. The neighbor boys always played together. One of the boys got into this picture. He moved his body during the exposure, and only his feet show. The first picture of Mr. Lincoln, far as anybody can tell, was in 1847, almost 10 years after he'd come here. After that, Mr. Lincoln had many pictures made. We don't have as many pictures of Mary. Her family was quite well off, and I'm sure you've heard the rumor that they weren't too happy about her marrying Abraham. By the way, don't call him Abe. He hates it. That Abe thing is only politics. Just a year before they left for Washington, Mary had her picture taken with Tad and Willie. The eldest boy, Robert, was born while they were still living at the Globe Tavern. Eddie was the firstborn at their new home. He died very young and never had a picture made. William, this is Willie, and Tad were born at the house, too. If you look very closely, you can see Tad poking his head out from behind the post. He was the prankster, all right. You realize, of course, because we have to sit so stiffly for such a long time to make these pictures, you almost never see anybody except in a formal posture. There are so many, and they all know the Lincolns. They all look so formal, though. Sort of somber. Oh, they aren't like this at all. I wish you could see them as they really are. All of them.
Not very spacious in here, is it? But this is an average home for the reasonably well-to-do. Not a mansion, you understand, just a comfortable home. A full second floor up here. It wasn't that way at first. When Mr. Lincoln bought the place, there was only about a 4-foot-high attic space up here. But due to the growing family and their more important social position, I suppose, he raised the roof. That's right. The roof went up, a new studding added. It gave them these 11-foot ceilings. Mary Lincoln is, from all I hear, a darn good housekeeper. A little harsh on the boys sometimes, but Mr. Lincoln's good humor and patience more than make up for that. Like any home, this one has known great joy and sadness. You might say both laughter and tears have echoed from these walls. There were family amusements, too. The Lincolns are a close family, and Mr. Lincoln is a solicitous and understanding father. Yes, and there were family spats here, too. Mary was proud of this home, and she kept it in the latest fashionable style. She had a book called the House Book, or a Manual for Domestic Economy for Town and Country. When Mr. Lincoln went to Congress, what year was that? Late in 47. He rented this house for the year the family was in Washington. He got $90 rent for the year. Well, I've got to go and prepare my wet plate.
It may be difficult to imagine Mr. Lincoln taking these stairs two at a time, or to hear the Lincoln boys racing up and down playing, as boys will do on rainy days, or to imagine Mrs. Lincoln and her maid preparing an evening meal. How quiet this parlor looks now, and how alive it was when the committee met here to tell Mr. Lincoln he was nominated to run for President of the United States. If the walls could only talk and reveal those secret things they know. What was it like when Mr. Lincoln left the group of political friends at the telegraph office to hurry home to tell Mary he had been elected president? Was she pleased? Apprehensive? We can only guess.
No, I don't like that. I'll try it over there.
Good morning.
Howdy. I guess you've got to remember that this was a settled community by the time the Lincolns had lived here nearly 20 years. Maybe this neighborhood has a better representation of classes of people than most. I don't know. You have Mr. Lincoln, a prominent attorney, on the corner there. The sheriff, he was standing in front of Dilla's drugstore in the picture that you saw. He lives over there. The auditor for the state of Illinois lives on this street. There are ministers, merchants, widows. There's even a competitor of mine, a woman photographer. Just down the street is Jesse Jenkins' place. His wife takes in laundry, and he drives the dray wagon. He took the Lincolns to the depot when they left. Then there's William Floorville. He, like Jesse, is black. Good day, ladies. We're only a couple of blocks from Mr. Lincoln's law office. Everyone here remembers Mr. Lincoln taking those long steps as he walked to and from his office. Once some boys hid behind a fence and knocked his hat off with a stick as he passed by. Well, I've got to get to work. Good day, ma'am.
Good day, sir.
Well, of course, we have a very fine neighborhood. And this is our state auditor, Mr. Dubois. Oh, and Dr. Wallace. He's another brother-in-law. Lives right down the street on the other corner. Amos Wortham. Jesse Kent. Oh, yes, a very nice, settled community. And the Lincolns were such good neighbors. I was sort of sorry to see them go. Even if he did get to be president.
This is the room at the Capitol where Mr. Lincoln received well wishes after he was elected president and before he left for Washington to take the oath of office. Mr. Lincoln tried over 240 cases before the state Supreme Court, and many of them were landmark decisions. Many people don't know that. They think Mr. Lincoln was a kind of homespun, sort of country lawyer who somehow bumbled into politics. Nothing could be further from the truth. He is a skilled courtroom attorney who sometimes uses the poor country boy approach. Truth is, he had a great influence on the interpretation of the law and the way the law is administered. And don't forget, he had a political career, too. Elected to the state legislature, then Congress. And those debates with Douglas had brought him to national prominence. I guess that's all right. You should look at some of the pictures. They show where Mr. Lincoln worked and the men he was associated with here in Springfield.
Certainly I know Abraham. Don't call him Abe. That was something invented for the campaign. When he was here in Springfield, you called him Abraham, if you knew him well, or Mr. Lincoln, if you didn't. This is where Abraham and his junior partner, Billy Hurden, practiced law. Only have a few pictures of Hurden, none while he was associated here. They were taken later. Have a good picture of the first law partner. It was while a junior partner with John Todd Stewart that Abraham learned much of his law. When Stewart went off to Congress, well, it was a good chance for a smart young partner who had to handle the business to meet some important clients. Then there was Logan. He was Abraham's second law partner. He was a fuss budget, but he wrote letter-perfect briefs. Abraham learned a lot from him, too. Here's the House chamber in the Capitol where Abraham gave his House Divided Against Itself speech. and the Supreme Court chamber where many of those important cases were tried.
They sold some of their belongings, put others into storage, and moved to Washington. We were all so proud.
Mr. Lincoln made a farewell address to the crowd gathered at the depot, brought credit to Springfield and to the state of Illinois.
I wonder how they really felt, leaving all their friends and the places they knew so well.
Abraham was always a go-getter, smart fellow, I always said.
Oh, yes, we're so proud.
And there he was, saying goodbye to us and going off to become President of the United States.
Just a minute more for the daguerreotype plate. We'll have this over with in no time. Excuse me. Well, you've seen our daguerreotypes, ambrotypes, and other pictures. While they reveal a lot, they don't tell us everything. Even I have to admit, we can record a person's image, but we can't show how he moves or smiles. We all have to appear so formal, so stiff. It's all right as long as you remember that these are images of real people. So many people. And places. And Mr. Lincoln, I suppose you've noticed, he didn't start raising a beard until just before he left. No beard. Not here in Springfield. We're ready, Miss Fenwick. The daguerreotype plate is ready. But pardon me a moment. Are you ready, Miss Fenwick? Remember now, you must remain absolutely still. You can't move so much as an eyebrow. Are you ready? You must remain absolutely still.